Clear it out. Everybody. What to do today? Ha, ha, ha. Bada-gada. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Yeah.
Oh, one fish,
Here we
two
go.
fish.
One fish, two fish. I'm Hank Patterson, Cub Scout dropout, high school graduate, world-renowned fly fishing expert and guide, and an extraordinary camper. I'm really good at camping. And this is Hank Patterson's Outdoor Misadventures. And joining me today on the old podcast is Alex, who's the sound engineer.
Hi.
Air quotes. And this is Chris Ger-O-No.
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, and it's Ger-O-No, not Ger-O-No.
It's Ger-O-No, but, you know.
Is it Ger-O-No?
It is Ger-O-No.
It's not
I've
Ger-O-No.
just gotten used to
People saying Ger-O-No?
Geronimo and Ger-O-No and...
You shouldn't get used to people mispronouncing your name.
Yeah.
Every now and then I get somebody that comes up to me when I'm out, being famous, and they're like, hey, big fan, Hank Peterson.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not a big fan, but it's Ger-O-No.
Ger-O-No.
That's a lot better. Ger-O-No.
Yep.
And that fits
No.
that fits you. That fits everything I know about you. Because if you meet you, you go, oh no.
Oh, no.
Oh no. They're going to say that a lot. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. You just add "jur" in front of it, and so it fits.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris is a fishing guide. You've been guiding for
20 years now.
Chris hasn't had a job in 20 years. It's
been awesome.
So you're a fishing guide for 20 years, which means you're a bartender.
Yep, that's right. Yep, exactly.
On the side.
On the
or
side.
would you say you're a bartender on the side, or you're a fishing guide on the side?
I used to be a fishing guide on the side, but, I slacked off enough in life that I've climbed my way up through all the other fishing guides that have gone off to do, bigger and better things. And
slow down. Not better. And only bigger from a monetary standpoint.
Monetary potential,
Because
yeah.
I know you well enough to know that you're having more fun than any of those guys that dropped out of the guiding scene.
And a lot of other people, too.
Right, yeah. No, you're having a good time, and you're probably not getting rich.
Not specifically with money, but, rich is a lot of different things.
It is.
Rich with experience.
I'm talking about money.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
No.
You want to know? You want to know how to make less money than a fly fishing guide?
Yeah.
You make fly fishing videos. Because then that's called spending money.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, "Oh man, God, you got a lot of people watching your video. Are you just killing it?" No, I'm not. I'm not killing it at all. I'm making much less than if I were guiding fishing.
Yeah, the YouTube checks aren't crushing it.
They are not. They are not. I'm making dozens of dollars every 5 years. You're a landowner. I know this about you.
Yeah.
You own some property.
Yep.
Which
Yeah.
I only bring that up because looking at you, people are going to be like, "What? That guy owns property?"
Yeah.
Holy shit! Anybody can own property. If that guy does it, you've got hope, Alex.
Oh, I need to check that out then.
Yeah, no, talk to Chris after this and find out
Large tracts
who
of land.
he cheated to get his hands on some land. And you're a yoga enthusiast.
I do the yoga. I do it on a regular basis.
You look good. When I first met you, you were fat.
I was a
Right?
little
You were
heavier.
drinking a lot. You were not fat.
Kind of around your physique, actually.
Right, yeah. No, over like dad bod. I got a couple of C cups going on over here. And, so when I met you, you had, what I would call, breasts. And now look at you.
Yeah.
It's your pecs. Now it's pecs. You're looking good.
Yeah.
You look
thanks.
fantastic.
Appreciate it.
When you first got into it, I kept thinking you were talking about yogurt. You would say, "Oh, I'm going to get yogurt. Oh, I got to get some yogurt." And you're talking about
the
yogurt pants,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, man. And so I started eating a shit ton of yogurt.
Yeah.
And then I started stocking on the pounds because it's got a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
And then I realized you were doing yoga.
Actual yoga.
Yeah, yeah. Does that help you be a better fly fishing guide? The yoga.
Well, being a fly fishing guide, you have to have a lot of patience. So the yoga helps you be a little bit more mindful with your clients when they get that 5th or 10th tangle in a row, doing things that you've explicitly asked them really nicely not to do.
Could you not do that and then just do it anyway?
Then they look at you, and they do it, and then they have a giant tangle, and then they look at you and smile and said, "Oh yeah, didn't you tell me not to do this?" And then that's where the mindfulness comes in.
You should ask that question before you do it. Hey, before I do this, did you tell me not to do this? After you've done it, it's a stupid time to ask the question. Because you know the answer at that point. When you're all tangled up in a tree or something like that. Asking you, did you tell me not to get tangled in a tree? You should ask before you get tangled in a tree. Before we get going, let's talk about the beer of the week. Every week, we go to the local gas station or restaurant or whatever is closest place that has alcohol, and we find the cheapest beer in the cooler. And today, Chris and me just went over to Maverick, and they had Mickey's Ice. These are, what is that, 24-ounce Mickey's Ice. That's an ice brewed ale for $2.19. Now, there was another beer there that had twice the alcohol content, but it was more expensive. So I was sort of on the fence, right? Because I was like, well, yes, it's more expensive, but are we going just by dollars or are we going by alcohol content? We decided to go just by dollars. And so today's beer of the week is this Mickey's Ice. Cheers to you, Chris.
Clink.
And then tell me how that tastes. Oh, God, that tastes like a $2.19 beer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes down smooth at first, but then the flavor kicks in and kick.
Yeah. It'd be better if that flavor didn't kick in.
Yeah,
it's something special. It is something special. And we've also got some snacks. We've got these Smokehouse almonds. I'll open those in case you want an almond at any point during the show. We've got cashews, right? And these are all good things to take camping, and that's why, or fishing. Take beer, take nuts. I got one of these little, like, Jif creamy peanut butter to-go cups, you know, in case, you know, my blood sugar drops. I got gum, because gum's a good idea to chew while you're recording a podcast. And so we got that, and I hadn't had lunch, so I got a Lunchable. Alex, you want a snack?
Yeah.
You want anything? What do you want?
I want cashews.
Okay. Yeah, throw those over there. Okay. So we've got our snacks. We've got our beer of the week. The sponsor of this week's show is Hank Patterson's How to Make an Award-Winning Film Tour Film, movie that I made while on the Arolik River in Alaska. Now available on Vimeo and also available on Amazon. So go to Amazon, and Chris is the co-star of that video, Hank Patterson's How to Make Film Tour Film. And so today we're going to talk about the experience of floating the Arolik River in Alaska. If you don't know where the Arolik River is it Arolik? Is that how you pronounce it? Or Arolik? Anyway, A-R-O-L-I-K, I believe. You go look it up. It's a fantastic place to go and spend 8 days with a
bunch of strangers.
7 or 9 people or a bunch of strangers catching tons of silver salmon and rainbow trout and grayling and a couple of dollies,
Dolly
right?
Varden. Yeah.
And that's it. One sockeye. I caught one sockeye, and I believe Brent caught a king salmon, although it was the skeleton of, I think he snagged a skeleton of what was once a king salmon. It was well beyond that run. So here's how it went. A couple of years back, I got a phone call from my buddy Eric, who owns a company called Float Alaska, and he's like, hey, Hank, do you want to go and do an 8-day fly fishing for silver salmon trip on the Arolik River in Alaska? And I said, yes. Because that's if somebody calls you up and they say, hey, do you want to go to Alaska and fish for silver salmon for 8 days, completely unplugged, away from the entire real world? Yes. You don't ask how much it costs. You don't ask any specifics about the trip. It's 8 days. It's just fishing. Absolutely, yes, I want to go. It's sort of like if somebody says, hey, Hank, you want a beer? Yes. It doesn't matter if you just cracked a beer, if you just finished a beer, if you're about to open another beer. If somebody says, do you want a beer? Yes, you can stockpile beers, right? Or, hey, do you want any cake? Yes, I want cake. Hey, do you want some cakes? Hell yeah, I want some cakes, right? And so Alaska, 8 days, Arolik River, middle of nowhere, you say yes right away. And so then I was like, okay, well, if I want to get this thing paid for, because I don't have any money, right? And I know it's going to cost some plane tickets, and Eric's going to charge a little bit, and then you got the float plane that takes you out. It's going to cost some cash to get out there and do this, and I didn't have any money, so I thought to myself, well, get some sponsors and shoot a film, right? So I called Trout Unlimited, Orvis, Montana Fly Company, Float Alaska, the F3T Fly Fishing Film Tour. And so I called those guys and I said, hey, I wrote this fantastic script for a film that needs to be shot on the Arolik River in Alaska. Do you guys want to sponsor? Do you want to be involved? It's a great script. I love this story that I've put together. Do you guys want to sponsor? And they were all like, hey, we want to get behind it. We want to do it. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. So they sent a few checks, and I went down to the bar and started writing a script. Because I didn't really have a script at that point. What I had was an invitation to go fishing in Alaska. I needed somebody to pay for it. And so I went and I wrote the script for Hank Patterson's How to Make an Award-Winning Film Tour Film. And then I got my buddy Jake Hickson to come up and shoot it. And we needed one more guy, to sort of help out on the shoot. There were 9 people on the trip, but those 6 people were on a fishing trip. They weren't up there to make a film. We were up there to make a film. But I needed one more guy. And so I thought, well, Ger-O-No's not doing anything, right? And so I called you, and I said, Chris, do you want to go on an 8-day float trip in Alaska for free, all expenses paid? As a matter of fact, I'll pay you a little bit for coming. Do you want to go? And you said...
Yes.
No,
I
did not say yes.
I said yes, and then I said, when is it? And then you said September 1st to the 10th, and then I said... maybe. And I actually...
maybe is the part that I remember.
I was actually on Silver Creek fishing with a buddy.
Right.
And I said maybe. And I said, let me get back to you. And let
me just reset the scene. I called Chris and I said, I have an all expenses paid trip to go fish silver salmon in Alaska. Do you want to go? And when we got off the phone, the answer was, let me think about it.
Yeah.
That's dumb. But why did you have to think about it?
Well, I mean, that was smack dab in the middle of the Burning Man Festival, which I had been to 8 years previous and had my tickets for this year and had the whole thing planned out and ready to go. And so it just took a minute to, process through. And so, along with my buddies standing there next to me going, what?
What are you thinking about? What the hell are you doing? Call him back right now.
Yeah. So
how long did it take you to call me back?
5 minutes.
Maybe.
Yeah. I put myself at Burning Man on Wednesday, halfway through the week, being dusty, dirty, sweaty, all
gross,
et cetera,
covered in fluids.
And I was like, I could be in Alaska right now on a river catching giant salmon and trout.
Making money, not spending any.
And that's when I hit redial and went right back to you and said, yes, please.
Yeah, which was good because I was when we hung up, I thought, oh my! I just asked a guy if he wanted to go to Alaska on an 8-day trip, and he said, well, let me think about it. So it's good it only took you 5 minutes to call me back because I'm pretty sure I could have filled that vacancy.
Have you been to Burning Man?
Really quick. I've not been to Burning Man.
Well, then if next time you go, then you might understand where the hesitation came from.
All right. Well, so let that be a lesson to everybody. If you want to know why you should potentially hesitate going on a free, all expenses paid trip to Alaska to fish, go to Burning Man because you might like that better. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Well,
we shouldn't talk about, it's a family show, so we're not going to talk about what happens at Burning Man right now. But the point being that I was very surprised that the answer wasn't immediately what it should be, which is yes, absolutely yes. I want to go to Alaska, but that was the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
And so we decided, hey, let's go do this thing. Wrote the film. Next thing, booked the trip. You fly up to Seattle, and then you fly to Anchorage, and then you fly over to Bethel, and then you get on a float plane, like one of those little float planes that land you on a lake, and that takes you up to Arolik Lake, and then from Arolik Lake, you float down to practically to the ocean, to the bay, to the right. It's in the it's in a drainage right around where the Pebble Mine is being proposed. The Pebble Mine. So that's how you get there. But when you're going to go on a trip to Alaska in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and this wasn't a we're staying in a lodge flying out thing. This is we are dropping you off and you have essentially become pioneers. Right? There's no help. If you break an ankle, if you have a heart attack, if something happens, there's no help out there. You're in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and to get help could take days.
Yeah.
right?
We took off from the middle of nowhere and went deeper into the middle of nowhere.
That's actually true. Yeah, if you've been to Bethel, you know we didn't start in a Mecca. And so when you get out there, it's eye-opening. You're all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, there's no telephones, there's no computers, there's no contact really with the outside world whatsoever. It's just you guys and you're floating in a raft. But here's what struck me about the trip. I have a lot of gear. Like camping gear, fishing gear, things that keep me warm, things that keep me comfortable. If it snows, if it rains, if it's windy, no matter what the elements are, I have a lot of gear. The first thing that you do when you're going to go to what I would say is a place where you most need that gear is try to figure out what you're not bringing. Mm-hmm. It's all dependent on weight.
Yeah.
So you can only bring so much stuff. You can't bring your favorite sleeping bag because it weighs 87 pounds. You have to bring only 9 pounds of stuff to survive with for 8 days on the river. Do you remember what the thought process was for you when you were figuring out what am I going to bring?
Well, I typically wait to the last minute. And then I just stay up all night the night before, and I just walk around my house in circles and just open up all the drawers, all the cabinets. I go in the garage, I walk around, I get a headlamp on because now it's real dark. And I just look at all the stuff, and then I just put it into a big pile in the middle of the living room. Mm-hmm. And then I start going, okay, this is really important. Water purifier, really important. We're going to put that one in, and then I just go through the piles of stuff.
So you just start identifying what's most important.
Yeah.
And you put that in a bag. Mm-hmm. And at the point the bag is too full, that shit ain't important.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
and then when there's 4 or 5 pounds extra left over, then it's oh gosh, what can I get to put in here?
Oh, so if you have extra room, then now all of a sudden you can start figuring out what can you bring. Mm-hmm. I just remember having to go buy new everything. The sleeping pad that I had, too big. The sleeping bag that I like to use, way too big, way too heavy. I have 40 different rain jackets, and so I had to pare that down to 2. Because don't go to Alaska and only take 1.
Bad idea.
Yeah, because if it starts raining, when it starts raining, it's going to probably rain every day, all day, for 5 straight days. And I don't care how good your rain jacket is, it's going to soak through. You're going to need another one, or you're going to get drunk and accidentally take it off and leave it outside, and it's going to get wet on the inside. So you want to have a couple of rain jackets. But I just remember thinking it was really odd that I'm going through all my gear and figuring out how little of it to bring to a situation where I need it the absolute most.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we got up to Bethel. And they stand you on these scales. So you take all your gear, and then you go and you stand on a scale. And they weigh you. And the people weighing you look like, I wouldn't hire these people to mow my yard. But they're about to decide how much weight should go on the airplane. The guy flying the plane looks like a guy that's probably given up on life. He doesn't care if the thing goes down, right? This is who is flying you out to Lake Arolik, right? And so you're already a little bit frightened. And I remember the only time on that trip where I had second thoughts was they had just weighed us. We went down. They start loading all our stuff on the plane. And then I got in the back seat of a plane that looks like it was built in 1890. The ceiling has old shag carpet. Some of the dials are made with what looks like old skateboard wheels. Remember that? So they're turning things that look like skateboard wheels. They're having to sort of tap on the oil gauge to make sure that thing's working. It's an old plane, and you get stuffed in there like a sardine, and he just shuts that door. And I had claustrophobia like I've never experienced in my entire life. And all of a sudden the plane's on, and they're scooting across the water to take off. And there's just a moment where I was going to be like, hey, whoa, 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 whoa. This is all happening very fast. And thank God it did, because if I'd had any more time to think about it, I'd have probably just said, the hell with this, I'm going to the bar. We took off, we fly out over the tundra. But anyway, we get up to Lake Arolik, and then we fill up the rafts. start building the rafts. And by we, I mean you and John.
Yep. I remember, you were the cheerleader, and it was kind of more like a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
But, I
was in a supervisory role.
Yeah.
Somebody had to supervise the whole operation.
Make sure that we weren't slacking.
Yeah.
As you put it.
Yeah.
As you slacked.
To the layman, it might have looked like I was just sitting around watching you guys build the rafts, fill the rafts with gear. But to the trained eye, I was the supervisor in that situation.
Yeah. I think John and I just kind of went along with it because we figured it would be faster, more efficient if we just did it ourselves and let you, think that you were helping out.
Smart. What do you remember most about that first day on the river? Because I'll tell you what I remember most, but you go ahead.
Well, right away there were fish all over the place, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we were told a little bit that the river where we were putting in might be a little bit low, and there might be a couple of spots to that we might need to drag the raft, and that became very evident. I would say in the first 10 feet of the float, where we had to drag the raft about 20 or 30 feet. And then float for another 15 or 20 yards, and then drag. And repeat.
It became very clear early on in the trip that we weren't on a float trip. We were on a boat dragging trip.
Right.
If you ever go and float the Arolik River, the first 2 days, you're dragging the raft. How much did the raft weigh? What would you guess?
Without anything in them, a little over 200 pounds, 250, 300 pounds.
Without anything in them.
Without anything in it. And then with all the gear, I don't know, 4 or 5 tons.
What? How much is a ton? I don't think it was 4 or 5 tons. What, like 400 pounds?
Yeah, something like that.
How much is 1 ton?
2,000 pounds.
Okay, so it's close. It was close. It was very close. It felt like about 8 hours into that first day where you drug a 400-pound raft over sandbars. And everything's slippery. Your feet are slipping on the bottom of the river. Your hands are slipping off of the raft. You got one guy who's trying to push, one guy's trying to pull. It's a horrendous, awful experience. Saved only by the fact that you discovered about 2 hours into day number 1 that, holy shit, these rainbow trout will crush a mouse.
Yeah. When I went up there, I had, visions of catching, trout on mice patterns, and it happened real quick. It happened real quick on the crick.
Yeah,
it happened real quick, and that made everything so much nicer.
It's amazing what you can overlook dragging a 400-pound boat, like literally, and you would drag it 30 yards and float 5 feet. Drag it 40 yards, float 3 feet. That was the experience. It was miserable and exhausting, but you didn't care because we're catching rainbows on mouse patterns, and we started getting into the silvers right away as well.
Yeah, the silvers. It was a few hours, down the river where we started getting into the silvers. The first portion of the river was rainbows. There were some sockeye up at the top that were spawning, and some dollies, grayling.
Yeah. I had never caught a grayling before that trip.
Yeah.
And that's got to be shocking, because you've seen me fish.
Yeah, I mean, just catching something.
I've been around. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm good. So it's just amazing that I had never caught a grayling. And Jake Hickson, who was with us, had never caught a fish on a fly rod in his entire life. He was there running the camera. He had never caught a fish on a fly rod in his entire life, and he caught 2 grayling before I ever caught one. So, and that's why we haven't had him back on
He's
a
a
shoot.
natural.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he was. We can talk about his hands later.
Yeah.
He got the no-see-ums, attacked that guy like I don't know if he was getting up in the morning and dipping his body in sugar water. I don't know.
It was awesome to have him on the trip for that reason only, because I remember one night I'd left my the zipper down in the tent.
And filled
it filled with bugs. And I was like, "Hey Jake, can you just come walk through my tent?" He just cleared them all out.
Yeah.
He walked in and they were like, "Oh gosh, it's that guy." And they all jumped on him, and then he walked out of the tent and I was like, "Okay, thanks, Jake. Take it easy."
One of the first things that I realized that I had left behind was I went and bought the nets that you put over your face because of the bugs, the mosquitoes. I think the no-see-ums could probably just crawl right through that, but I bought one of those net things to put over my head, and I left it behind. And my water purifier, I also left that back at home. Of all the things to leave behind, those are not two of them you want to leave behind. But luckily other people had water purifiers. But I would do exactly that, no joke. If the bugs were really bad, I would stand next to Jake Hickson because for whatever reason, that guy was the meal of the day. I was like, I was the broccoli. He was the shrimp.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. And so you would just stand next to him. I remember we were partway into the second day, and I was like, oh man, I sort of felt something on my hand, and I looked down, and there's a little tiny dot of blood on my hand, and I thought, oh geez, and I was really concerned, like, what bit me?
Get the first aid kit
out. Is everything gonna be okay?
Hydrogen peroxide.
So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, and it just brushed away.
Yeah.
It was sort of nothing, but I was really worried, and I was like, man, I think something's biting my hands. Jake Hickson holds up his hands, and it literally looks like, what's the hamburger helper?
Yeah.
That hamburger helper glove. His hands were swollen to twice the size.
He could barely
of their
run the
normal
camera.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't make a fist. It looked like if he kept trying to make a fist, his hands were just going to explode. Right. And this is day one.
Yeah.
This is the first day.
Yeah.
And he doesn't fish.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be there.
No.
He was miserable.
I think he said to you, "We're going to make a really, really good video here, but don't ever ask me to do this again."
Night one. 8 nights. The first night. He looks at me and he says that, and he's not joking.
No.
Do not ever invite me on a trip like this again. And then his big, giant, swollen, meaty hands pulled his covers up over his face, and he immediately went to sleep. Didn't eat dinner that night. He had it. He was like, no. He didn't want to eat. He didn't want to communicate. But the hardest working guy on the trip. Yeah. Absolutely the hardest working guy. The guy that was the most miserable was the hardest worker. And I
kept him from thinking about all the bug bites.
That was my theory. My theory was this guy is so miserable that he has to like carry heavy objects just to keep his mind from thinking about where he is, what he's doing, and the fact that his hands might explode at any minute.
And there's 7 more days.
He warmed into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
By the time we got back to Boise.
Oh yeah, no. He was miserable throughout. He was the most excited to be done with the trip for sure. And that all being said, if you talked to him today, he would say, "Yeah, I'd do it again."
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because time heals all wounds. Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about the fishing on the trip because the fishing was spectacular on this trip. Now, mind you, it was 47 miles we were floating. Mm-hmm. We were floating 47 miles. We were the last boat of the season to go down the river, which is to say we had 47 miles of river stuffed with silver salmon, rainbows, graylings, Dolly Varden, all to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And yet, I did notice that if you went out and started catching some fish, all of a sudden you'd have a guy on your shoulder. We had 47 miles of river, and all of a sudden Mark Graycar, the doctor among us, is like standing 3 feet off my left-hand shoulder casting. I'd be, dude, we have 47 miles. Like, can you give me 14 feet?
Yeah.
Or 100 feet? Or, you know what? Give me a mile.
Yeah.
Give me 3 miles. There's 9 of us. Do the math. Yeah, move on.
Yeah.
But the fishing was phenomenal.
It was epic. I've been fly fishing a long time. Definitely top 10 fly fishing adventures of my life. Probably top 5. The surface fishing was amazing. I fished mouse patterns, and I have a steelhead dry fly kind of popper that I tie, and I tied it in pink and white for silver salmon, and 85% of the time that's all I fished was the mouse or the silver salmon popper. Occasionally I put on a streamer just for the heck of it, 8 days on a river in Alaska, never put on an egg pattern.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I put on an egg pattern at the top.
Yeah.
Because, well, hold on. I was handed a rod with an egg pattern on it up at the top. Second cast in Alaska, hooked up on, I don't know, 18-inch rainbow trout. It was fantastic. Took it right off. Didn't fish with it again because it was like 10 minutes later that I hear 200 yards down, you're screaming, you know, fish on a mouse. Somebody's screaming about it. And from then on, it was all I could do to take a mouse off my rod.
Yeah.
Because it's that fun. But the reason to take the mouse off the rod were those pink polywog thingies that you would skate on top. And what was super cool about that to me, and I hadn't had this experience really, is you'd be skating that thing and just stripping it across the top of the water, and you wouldn't see a fish, you would just see a wake. And if all you're seeing is a wake, you know you've got a pretty good-sized fish coming after that thing, and they would crush it pretty good.
Yeah.
And those are the salmon.
Yeah, the silver salmon are typically the most aggressive of the salmon species in the streams, and so that's why they're so highly sought after, and they do crush surface poppers. And
yeah, I was going to say that. That was a bit of that was some trivia that I was going to say too about hey, Alex, the silver salmon are often considered to be the most aggressive of the salmon family. So they'll crush stuff on top. Unlike some of the other, not to say that the other salmon won't, because would you agree that they would? Like a sockeye would also hit something on top?
Sockeye, no.
No, they don't.
No.
They don't, which is exactly why the silvers are a little bit more sought after, I think, in the fly fishing world than a sockeye. Here's something that we didn't see on our trip and that I was convinced we would see a lot of, because the week before the trip, I went over to Eric's house and we were sort of talking about the float and what was going on. And he had just talked to a few other guys that had gotten off the river. And it was basically like, oh, these guys saw 7 grizzlies and these guys saw 3 grizzlies and these guys had a grizzly in camp. And there was a lot of grizzly bear talk. And the thing with grizzly bears in Alaska is you don't want to see one, but you don't want to not see one. You don't want to go all the way to middle of nowhere, Alaska, and come back without a grizzly bear story.
Yeah.
We don't have a grizzly bear story.
Yeah. And the one of the reasons that I didn't want to see a grizzly bear is because of all the sidearms that were being carried around on, along with the beers being drunk and, if the bear would have come out, then the sidearms would have come out, and then
one of us would have got shot.
It would have been someone would have needed a tourniquet.
I'm glad I hadn't thought of that, because I didn't think about the fact that really what we were in danger of was fish pulling that sidearm, which is the size of my leg, and firing it at a bear.
With his eyes closed.
But hitting me. With his eyes closed and hitting me, right?
Yeah.
Convinced that just seeing the bear means it's charging.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just sort of like, oh my God. Yeah, no, you're right. One of us was going to get shot. So that's probably a good reason not to see a grizzly bear. I just had written some genius comedy sketches based on Hank Patterson seeing a grizzly bear. Now, in retrospect, I've thought about those sketches. They all required that I turned my back on the grizzly bear. And so I'm kind of happy we didn't see one, because I was in the zone. I was all about shooting a great video. If I had seen a grizzly bear, I wouldn't have thought straight. I would have immediately turned my back to it and started backing up towards it while Jake shot video of this hilarious. I would have probably gotten eaten to death.
Better you than me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would have done exactly what they tell you not to do, because I would have thought it would be funny.
Yeah. That's why you're so good at what you do.
I'll tell you what, though, if that video ended like that grizzly man, like with me getting eaten or something, that premieres at Sundance.
Yeah.
We didn't premiere at Sundance. We premiered in Cleveland, Ohio, to an audience of 80 people. But if I'd have gotten eaten by a bear, Sundance, you'd be making some scratch. You're the co-star of the movie.
Yeah, I would have been like next guy down to get the coin.
Yeah, you'd have
I'd
been
been
good.
touring
You wish we would have seen a grizzly
the country
bear
right now, as opposed to sitting in your little office in suburbia Boise, Idaho.
Right. Yeah, you'd be on tour. You'd be telling the story about what great friends we are. You'd probably work up some tears and just tell old stories about us hanging out. And you'd cash in on this thing if I'd gotten eaten by a grizzly bear.
Retirement plan.
Yeah, that'd have been nice. We should go back.
I was going to say, you want to go to Alaska tomorrow? I hear they're getting out of hibernation right about now.
What's weird about not seeing a grizzly bear is this. There were grizzly bear tracks everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a freeway of grizzly bears were clearly coming through the area, and we couldn't spot one. And then I thought, well, maybe they're old tracks, until you came across a pile of grizzly bear shit, and I mean a pile. I had no idea that a grizzly bear could poop like 37 pounds, and the steam would still be coming off of it. Fresh tracks, steamy, giant piles of. There were grizzly bears clearly in the area.
Yeah. There were the one camp that we stopped at. There was a giant grizzly bear track where the grass where it had pushed it down was still matted down in the track, like it hadn't started to grow. Hadn't righted itself. Yeah, I mean, like that's.
You could stand there for like 5 minutes and watch that grass, and it was slowly starting to come up because it had just moments ago been crushed down. Why do you think we didn't see any grizzly bears? Do you have a theory on that?
Because we were catching so many fish on mouse patterns and yelling and screaming.
We were super loud.
Really loud.
Right? And I've always said one of my pet peeves when you go out camping is people being too damn loud.
Right.
But there is a place and a time where you can be as loud as you damn well please. When you have 47 miles of river all to yourself in the middle of who the hell knows where Alaska, you can be as loud as you want. And I would say that was one of the fun parts, was not worrying about other people.
I'd recommend it.
Oh, absolutely. You can call Eric at Float Alaska. I'm going to charge him for this shit.
Yeah.
Float Alaska. I think it's floatalaska.com. Ask for Eric. Tell him Hank sent you. Or Chris Ger-O-No.
There it is.
Sent you, and you'll get 15% off your next trip. Or just tell him I said that. We haven't worked out a deal, but if he gives him 15% off the trip, then I should get that 15%. That's how that works.
It's called a booking fee.
Right, yeah, it's a booking fee. Right, so if you call and you say, hey, Hank sent you, Eric should give you 15% off of, say, $1,000, right? Which is, what's 15% of $1,000? That's $300. So then I get $300. So then Eric owes me the $300.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
3 large.
So call Float Alaska, floatalaska.com. Call Eric. Tell him Hank sent you, and tell him as soon as Hank has his check for $300, you're going to book a trip with him. Make sure I have my money first, because that's a guy, he's sketchy.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
A little bit.
Did you trust him at all during the trip?
When he was sleeping, yeah.
Yeah, right, when he wasn't talking.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you're busting your ass all day. Look, as fun as it is, it's a shit ton of work. You're setting up the camp, you're breaking down the camp, you're cooking, you're cleaning dishes, you're carrying heavy coolers full of shit. It's a shit ton of work. Yeah. One of the things that I worried about going up there was like, oh my God, I hope I don't have insomnia up there. I don't want to be up there worrying about, grizzly bears and being awake all night. I don't want that experience. I want to be able to sleep, and I was a little worried that I was going to get in that tent at night, and the only thing I would think about was, what was that sound? Did you guys hear that? I mean, I thought that's my experience. You worked your ass off all day long. Even the fishing was fun, but you're pulling in big, heavy fish all day long. And so your head hit the pillow at the end of the night and you're done.
Yeah.
You're out.
Yeah. I've
never slept better.
I was the last one up every night, so I could tell. I knew who was working the hardest.
Right. Not you.
Not me.
No. No, it's depending on who went to sleep. Well, I would say some of that might have been more dependent on what kind of physical condition you're in.
Yoga.
And how much drinking you've done.
Yeah.
Because you weren't drinking like crazy up on that trip.
No.
Right?
I did the majority of my drinking before I turned 40.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did the majority of my drinking before I turned 21.
Yeah. Well,
and that says something. Because, I kept going. We're talking about the majority, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, But there were people on that trip that woke up and brushed their teeth with whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, it started early.
Early.
You know, coffee was definitely coffee and Baileys.
Yeah.
And that turned into whiskey, and that turned into beer, but mostly whiskey because beer weighs too much to take.
Yeah. Then you got to take your waders down, to pee and everything.
Oh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the pooping situation, since you bring it up. Here's the thing about pooping on a trip like that. What you have, there's shovels. You have a shovel, and you have to go and dig a hole and poop in it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Get through the gravel.
Yeah, you got to get through there. Every single spot that we stopped and camped was on a gravel bar, surrounded by water. If you wanted to poop, you had to wader up.
Yeah.
You had to get your boots on. You had to get your waders on. I would say that the single worst thing to be wearing while trying to poop are boots and waders.
Yeah.
Come up with anything worse. Nothing, right?
Yeah.
So every single time we had to poop, you had to get a shovel, and then everybody knew you were going to poop too. And it's like, I'm not that shy of a person, but I don't make an announcement about it. You know, when I have to go to the bathroom, I don't like, hey, I'm going to poop. But that shovel was the announcement. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was like picking up a sign that said, I'm going to poop. Oh, or even worse, you had to go looking for the shovel.
Yeah.
So everybody knew what was going on. And then you had to wader and boot up, and then you had to go out there, and then you had to poop. And the entire time you're pooping, I don't know about you, but all I'm thinking about is, oh my God, I hope we don't get attacked by a grizzly bear.
Or mosquitoes.
Right. Yeah, because they'll attack every open surface.
All the places.
Anything uncovered will be attacked.
The soft skin
Right,
areas.
yeah. The areas that don't normally see the light of day are the most scrumptious to a mosquito.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking to myself, I'd be trying to poop and having a hard time because I would be so worried that your body starts to revolt. And they're like, no, we need to hang on to this. And I'd be out there worrying about the grizzly bears. And all I could think was, if I got attacked by a grizzly bear in Alaska and I survived to tell the tale, I'd be like some sort of folk hero. Holy shit, that's that guy that got attacked by a grizzly bear and lived to tell about it.
While pooping.
But that's the catch. If you got attacked by a grizzly bear while pooping, that changes the entire story. That's that dude that got attacked while he was taking a shit by a bear. So it goes from, oh man, this rugged Marlboro man that went up there and fought a bear, like the Revenant sort of experience, becomes you're a joke on, like, you know, the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
All of a sudden. So you're either going to be a hero or the butt of a joke. So
caught with your pants down.
Yeah. That'd be the headline, you know? Fisherman caught with his pants down, and everybody'd have a laugh.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about that trip, Chris?
I would say the silver salmon on that silver salmon popper that I tied. Just seeing the giant wakes come after your fly. That was pretty exciting. Like the build of adrenaline, you know, one after the other.
Yeah, I was going to say the friendships. That was my favorite part, just the camaraderie.
That's because you didn't catch as many fish.
Here's what I thought was funny about that trip was how excited everybody was to catch a fish every single time. How many fish do you think you caught a day? How many silver salmon?
20 or 30.
At least.
Sometimes you just stopped because you're like, well,
your arm hurt.
Yeah, I have to go do something else.
Yeah, because it
dig
was
a hole or something.
Ridiculous how many fish you could catch. And they were all generally in the same range of size, wouldn't you say?
8 to 12 pounds were the silver salmon were in that realm.
You would have thought every time somebody caught one, it was the first one that they had ever caught. They remained that excited about the fish. And they'd go, oh my God, did you see the size of this one? It's the size of the last one.
Yeah.
It's also the size of the next one. They're all generally that big.
Yeah.
Would you do this trip again?
Yes.
That was how fast that original question
Yes.
should have been. Yeah. That's how fast you should have answered that question the first time I asked it.
Would have been followed up by don't do it August 28th to September 7th.
Are you going to Burning Man this year?
Yes.
I should probably check it out because apparently I'm getting a piece of gum if everybody's hearing this. You want to stick?
I'm drinking my beer still.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Settle down. Hold on. I got to get a piece of gum. The thing about a trip like this is, and you said it when we were on the trip, and you said it to Jake because he was crying. It's an adventure, not a vacation.
If you want a vacation, get on a plane and go to Hawaii and sit on the beach.
Yeah, that's a vacation.
Like all expenses paid, like
people bring you your drink.
All inclusive, coconuts with umbrellas,
menus,
and cocktails, and sunscreen,
snorkeling,
spas,
people rubbing your shoulders. Yeah, that's a vacation.
Pedicures,
right?
Yeah.
This is an adventure.
This is an adventure. Yeah.
Because you have no idea what the hell you're getting into.
Yeah. And you got to use your muscles.
And you're going to work your ass off to
sleep
have
on
fun.
The ground.
Maybe that's the difference. Like on a vacation,
Wash
you
dishes.
do not work to have fun.
Make your bed.
On an adventure, you work to have a good time. Or you work really hard and you just mentally convince yourself that you're having a good time because it's like, oh, well, I must be having fun because I paid to come here to do all this goddamn work.
The hard work makes the average fun really, really fun.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an adventure. And it's an adventure that I would suggest anybody go on. No, I wouldn't. No. Hold on, let me back up. Yeah. I would suggest most people don't go on it, actually.
Yeah.
If you love fly fishing, if you love catching fish on top, if thinking, oh my God, I can catch 20, 24, 26-inch rainbow trout on mouse patterns in the middle of the day on top, if that excites you, this might be the trip for you. If you have a bum knee, don't go. It's the dragging part.
Yeah.
You just had a hip replacement. This is not the one for you.
No.
Not that river. No. You can go to the Arolik
unless you have
one of these other rivers
who's gonna drag the boat for you while you're in it.
Yeah.
Then a little bit more of vacation action.
Yeah, no. Go on a guided trip. That's a vacation.
That's a vacation.
Absolutely. They're going to go ahead. They're going to set up camp. They're going to cook for you. They're going to wash the dishes. You're going to have a beer and a cigar at the end of the night or whatever. That's a vacation. Go do that. Have a cognac at the end of the night. Yeah.
Whiskey's for do-it-yourself trips. Cognac, that's for guided trips.
I'll tell you what. If I had to set up that effing tent one more time, that sucked.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
it was awful. It was an awful experience.
I've done guided trips in Alaska where I was the guide setting up the stuff, digging the poop hole for the
You dug
poop
a poop
tent.
hole? Oh, all right.
Not
They
for-
had a poop tent,
not
so
for
you had to
one
dig
person.
a big hole. Right.
There was a poop tent.
You need to start doing yoga then, Hank, and then you can... And then it
Dig a
won't be
poop
so
tent?
miserable.
So that I can boot. Why now? Yeah, there's a questionnaire when you go to the yoga studio. It says, why did you decide to come to our studio? I want to be in, I can dig a poop tent hole shape.
Yeah.
This is why.
And smile.
And who recommended you? Chris Ger-O-No?
Yeah.
No, so that it wouldn't be as hard. I mean, he's making it sound like a breeze. Maybe you just need to do
I
more
could
yoga.
dig my own poop hole
Yoga.
just fine, right? Without I could dig a good solid poop hole without running out of breath for myself.
That's why I started.
But this is why I don't
other benefits,
guide in Alaska. I'm not going to go guide an 8-day trip, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris has done that. He'll probably do it again, all right? But I'm not going to do
let
that
me go back.
specifically now. If you would have asked me before this podcast, like, Hank, why don't you want to do that? I would have said something like, because I don't want to set up some other, guy's cot, That's bullshit. Set up your own damn cot. I don't want to pitch somebody's tent, or I don't want to make somebody's dinner. That's bull. Make your own damn dinner. But now the answer as to why do I not want a guide in Alaska? Because I don't want to dig a poop hole for 12 people.
Yeah. It had to be really deep.
Yeah, it had to be deep. I'll tell you, the only good thing probably, if you're the guy digging the poop hole, first poop.
First poop. Yeah.
We talk a lot about poop on this podcast.
We do.
Right? I think on every episode it's come up. Did you say it's dinner at your mom's house? What are you guys talking about at dinner?
She has to bring up poop at any meal.
That's disturbing.
She thinks it's so funny.
Well, not during dinner, it ain't.
Well, I mean, I
She
guess
just
the
loves
poop,
making people
eat, therefore
uncomfortable.
pooping. I mean, she's just getting it going.
Just getting the conversation happening. There are people that
She calls
can...
farts food ghosts.
Food ghosts? I'm a shy person. I'll tell you, one of the best experiences I had on this Alaska trip was getting back to civilization in a toilet. Because my body was like, now it's time. Now it's time. Everything became more comfortable. It was a triple flush situation. It was those 8 days, my body held on to as much as it could, and the minute I hit modern plumbing, my body was like, whoosh, let it all go. It was a great experience. That happens a lot with camping. Is you get back home to your home turf and you get that. There's nothing better than that post-camp trip poop. Just really letting her fly. Yeah.
Alex, for your next dinner with your mother,
Yeah.
what do you call a vegetarian with the shits?
What?
Salad shooters.
Is that like a tune on the commercial?
Yeah.
Now everybody needs to go Google that commercial.
Salad shooter helps you every day. Original and professional salad shooter.
Let's do this. What would Hank do? Question of the week. So every week we have a question from a listener. If you want to ask a question of me, go to Hambone at troutjousters.com and put what would Hank do in the subject line, and then ask your question, and then Alex will choose her favorite question of the week, and she will ask it of me. Alex, what's this week's question?
All right, so this week's question is from Sarah in Missoula. It says, Hank, I'm new to camping and trying to decide what kind of sleeping bag to purchase. Can you give me some advice?
Okay. You're new to you live in Missoula and you're new to camping. So
I know, that's what I thought.
I'm thinking to myself, maybe you're a transplant, right? Because I would think if you grew up in Missoula that you would not be new to camping. What kind of sleeping bag should you get? It really depends on where you're going. So, if I'm just, hopping in the pickup and I'm going to go camping, I have a sleeping bag called a Elk Hunter Special. It's thicker than my bed at home. It's probably like, you unroll it and it's probably like, what is that? Like 37 inches thick. You don't need a sleeping mat because this is like sleeping on a king bed. It's wonderful. Here's the situation. It weighs 87 pounds and rolled up, it takes up half the bed of my pickup. It'll keep you warm if it's minus 100 degrees outside. It's a fantastic sleeping bag, but it's not terribly practical. But if you've got room for it and you're just going camping somewhere where you're just going to walk from the pickup over to the tent like 10 feet, this is a sleeping bag that you're going to want to have. It's also really wide, right? So you can move around in it, you can maneuver in it, you can share it with a friend. It's a wide, comfortable, warm, thick, soft sleeping bag. So go get one of those. Big cloth thing, right? You wouldn't think the cloth sleeping bags would be any good. You'd think, oh man, they must be making sleeping bags out of better things like fiberglass or something now that keep you way warmer. But nothing's going to keep you warmer than these giant, thick Elk Hunter Special sleeping bags. So get that. Now, if you're going to go on a trip like we did down the Arolik, you got to have a sleeping bag that weighs like less than a beer. like 3 ounces or something like that, right? And so I went and I got one, can't remember the name of the company, it's a mummy bag, and on it says good up to minus 30 degrees. It's as thick as a piece of paper. Maybe two pieces of paper stacked on top of one another. There doesn't seem to be any sort of padding in it or anything at all that would keep you warm. So I was very concerned, but that's all the room that I had in my pack was for a 2-ounce paper-thin sleeping bag. It's a mummy bag, and so I took that. The first night, it wasn't terribly cold. It was maybe 30 degrees out, and I got in that thing, and about an hour into sleeping, I'm covered in sweat. Thing was fantastic. I have absolutely no idea what sort of black magic they're using to make these sleeping bags, but it was super warm. It's a mummy bag, goes up over your head. The downside to that sleeping bag is there's nothing between you and the ground. You feel every single pebble, every single rock. So you're going to need a sleeping mat. Another downside to the mummy bag, in my opinion, you can't maneuver. You can't roll around. They stick to you. Every time so they start to twist up on you. And so by the time, you wake up in the morning, you're twisted into a pretzel. This thing, you're halfway out of it. So they're not terribly comfortable in that way. The reason not to use one on a typical camping trip is because typical camping trips, you don't work all that hard. So you're not all that tired, and so you notice how incredibly friggin' uncomfortable a mummy bag is. On a trip to the Arolik, you have worked so damn hard all day that it doesn't matter. You could sleep standing up, and so they keep you warm. You're going to fall asleep no matter what they put you in, and so that's a sleeping bag that I would choose for a trip like that. Also because you don't have room for the one that I prefer. They say leave them wanting more. In camping and fishing and movies and Hollywood, there's a saying that says leave them wanting more. And we, once again, I'm sure, have left you wanting much, much, much less. So we'll end it here. So thanks to Chris Ger-O-No for going on a trip to Alaska with me and for agreeing to come here and do this podcast. And I hope you'll come back. And if you're ever in the Boise, Idaho area, you can find Chris Ger-O-No guiding out of Idaho Angler. And if you're looking for a good guide, if you're looking for a guide, Chris Ger-O-No, you can find him at the Idaho Angler. This show is created by Travis Schwartz, handsome man, and Hank Patterson. Sound engineer is Alexandria Ravella. Co-produced by Alex and Travis. Subscribe. Do me a favor. Look, hey, we're only going to get better at this. And we've set the bar really, really low. And so imagine how much better it's going to get each and every week. So do me a favor. Don't judge us by what we've done today. Go out and subscribe and focus on the future of this podcast. We can't keep making the show without you. Subscribing and listening. Well, we can. That's not true. Yeah. We don't need you. I don't need these people. Nah. Right? I can make the podcast if I want.
Yeah. You got all that money rolling in from the YouTube channel.
Yeah. There's just no purpose to making it if people aren't listening. Right? But I can do whatever the hell I want. I'm just saying, I would have more purpose in making more podcasts if people would subscribe and share it and tell your friends to subscribe. And if you have any ideas on how to make it better, make your own damn podcast. Don't send them to me. I don't want to hear it. But if you have questions about anything else, hambone@troutjousters.com. That's the end of the show. Say goodbye, Chris.
Goodbye, Chris.
Alex.
Bye.
Okay, we're done.
Salad sugar helps you every day.